Greetings, I'm Sean Redman, aka the cheesily named Darth Shawn. And no, I'm not dead. Uh, Life came at me really quickly. I've been very, very busy, but here I am back to talk about Batman versus Superman. And does it suck? So, if you've been not on the internet for the past couple of years, then you've missed a whole lot of outrage around this movie. From casting choices to directors to looks of outfits to just the way everything was being presented as it. There was lots of outrage. So, is the outrage deserved? Are the bad reviews deserved? In a short answer, yes. This movie is a disaster. That doesn't mean there aren't things that maybe I enjoyed or elements that I thought worked or ideas that could have really, really been a great story. I think there's a lot of good actually in this movie. The problem is what they gave us, the movie they put together, the movie they put on the screen is absolutely awful. This is easily one of the worst superhero movies I've ever sat through. And I'm including things like Ghost Rider and Batman and Robin and uh, Green Lantern and the X-Men Origins movie in that and X-Men 3. This is up there as all the bad movies. When we talk about a lot of times the really bad ones, Batman and Robin is the one that comes to my mind the most. We talk about it because it's overly cheesy and it took the genre all in one direction. Well, this is the exact opposite of that. It goes way too far in another direction, but there's nothing good, there's nothing bright, there's nothing happy in this movie. Everything is dark, everything is droll, and because of it, there's no balance. It is just a dark movie. And while there's nothing wrong with having a darker superhero movie, there's nothing wrong with a darker tone, there's nothing wrong with a darker DC universe. You gotta get some light in it though, because it is just it's such a downer. Like, I can't imagine how anyone could enjoy this movie, because by the end you're just like, oh, the runtime is long, sometimes it's boring, and just it's a downer. Everything is a downer. There is nothing happy about it. uh, and so this movie as a whole is really not good. It just isn't. As much as I wanted it to be good, it's not. It's really, really bad. And it's so disappointing that this is how we got Batman and Superman. Now, like I do when there's something I really hate, I like to talk about what I liked first. So let's start off. I really enjoyed Ben Affleck as Batman. Now, that being said, I think his dialogue was written terribly. He isn't given a whole lot of it to do. There are a lot of weird sequences here. And Batman has like 4 dream sequences in this movie, and some of them are just all over the place. But as a whole, Ben Affleck does a good job. I think in a much better script, a much better story, a much better kind of put together Batman movie, I think he is going to be absolutely fantastic. So we're very much holding out for a standalone Batman movie with him just being in the center, because he does a great job. He's a good Bruce Wayne. He's a good Batman. The character is just not given enough. I think as far as the characters go, Batman makes the most sense in this movie. He is the only one of the characters that you can kind of buy into his motives and what happens. Now, there are things that throughout the movie, and I guess before I get too far in all this is going to be a spoiler-filled review. If you haven't seen it already, you've probably seen a lot of the spoiler reviews and everything going on. I know I'm behind the 8 ball, so I'm going to talk a lot about what happens in the final scenes. Batman, the biggest problem I have with Batman through this is he turns 180 way too quickly. Like, the whole movie, he's going to take down Superman. We have kind of a darker Batman, a Batman that has gone down this turn and has turned in a lot of ways not to the kind of the vigilante that's for justice, but more just the vigilante that's going to punish wrongdoers. And there's nothing wrong with that. I actually think that's an interesting idea to take Batman. Batman has a body count in this movie. He kills, he uses guns. Some of them are in dream sequences, some of them are in non, but still we have on screen Batman is willing to kill. Batman is willing to go to dark places. And that's an interesting take on Batman. But then in the last act, he makes a 180 so quickly from this, like, I'm going to stop Superman, to suddenly, hey, let's be best friends. And it happens like that. And you're just like, wait, So for 2.5 hours, you fed me this, and now you're gonna just pull the rug underneath and just whoop. Hey, guess what? None of that mattered because Superman and Batman share their mothers, share last name, or share first names. They're both named Martha. Now they're best friends. That bothered me. That being said, I really did love Ben Affleck's performance. Uh, I thought actually, as a whole, all the actors were pretty good. Henry Cavill again doesn't have great dialogue. There's some brutally bad dialogue in this movie, and he tries his absolute best. But I think he's a good Superman. I would have loved to see him in kind of more of the upbeat, older style Superman because I think he would have held his own really well and would have been a very interesting character to see in the kind of the older classic Christopher Reeve Superman slash Brandon Routh in the Superman Returns, kind of that style. But he does a great job in this movie. I really enjoy him as Superman. I think he's given nothing. Superman's motives are non-existent in this movie. Superman's character development non-existent in this movie. Superman is just kind of there to move the story a little bit as Lex Luthor and Batman are plotting around him and making moves. I would have liked to see more from Cavill and allowed him to really kind of embody the character instead of just being he does a good job. He's not great, but because of what he's given. But I think it's not the faults of this movie are not on the actors like Affleck or Cavill or even Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I think she does a great job of giving the presence of Wonder Woman when she's on screen. Now she's barely on screen, and yet they try to force extra stuff into us and be like, she's really important, even though she has like 6 minutes of screen time or something like that. Sorry, the story revolves somehow around her. In the end, the actors are not the problem. In my rambling ways, the actors are not the problem. They all give solid roles. They all give solid performances, and they do a good job. They're just not given great scripts. They're not given great characters as a whole, and the story around them just is a disaster. So it's hard to really love them, despite the fact that I think all three of the major actors did a good job. Now to the my least favorite character in this movie. And I am one who defends a lot of these bad casting choices, or what is considered a bad casting choice. Definitely was a fan. I said Ben Affleck being Batman, cool. I'm in down for it. Let me see it. Jesse Eisenberg's a weird casting, cool. Let me see it. Heath Ledger's cast of the Joker, cool. Let me see it. The bottom line is I don't get upset about these casting choices that everyone gets up in arms because I think anyone, they're actors. They can play other characters. They can do a good job. They can embody and become new characters. And so I was intrigued by the idea of Jesse Eisenberg being Lex Luthor and how they were going to take it. Unfortunately, we didn't get a Lex Luthor here. We got Jesse Eisenberg playing the Joker underneath the name Lex Luthor. And if you literally just put Jesse Eisenberg in some white paint and put a purple suit on and then green hair, he could have played the Joker. And he honestly wouldn't have shocked anybody because it's just that's what it is. He's a chaos-driven character that's just doing things, as Heath Ledger's Joker says, just doing things around that don't make sense. When anytime that you see him trying to rationalize why he's doing things, he tells a slightly different story, and you don't feel for him. And because you're supposed to think of this as a grand master plan instead of just chaos, because he's built with it, he's making this grand master plan to bring, in the end, it looks like Darkseid to Earth, maybe something along those lines, whatever he's doing, and all this that he's trying to get Superman out of the way and all this plan, but none of it is thought out, none of it's put together. His story is ridiculous, so his acting is over the top and bad. And I like Jesse Eisenberg. I like him as an actor. I hated him, and every time Lex Luthor's on the screen, it was painful to watch him try to be this character, try to separate himself instead of just playing a strong Lex Luthor type character. And I think because they so far did a casting so far out of type, because Lex Luthor, the bigger, balder dude is usually what he is, and they did such a different typecast. They went kind of the geekier route that he had to. They felt like they had to do this extravagant character. When if Jesse Eisenberg just kind of played his usual characters, who are just kind of, especially like if he just played a version of Mark Zuckerberg from the Social Network movie, it actually I think would have worked better because that character is hateable in a lot of ways. while trying to be likable, and that kind of fits Lex Luthor. Instead, we try to do this over the top villain, and it ended up just being a bad performance. That's what it was, and it's disappointing to say the least. But in the end, the major problem of this movie is its story. It is trying to be so many things at once, and the problem, the idea of Batman and Superman battling is a good idea, and there is a coherent kind of trying to put them together, and maybe, because Batman and Superman are very different in their views of how they do it, and if you go completely to this more violent Batman type that is just trying to punish criminals versus kind of the Superman ideology, and if you bring them together as trying to fight, that actually had a really interesting idea, that kind of more than just like the brawn versus the brain idea, but more of the completely different ideologies and how they fight crime. And if you kind of put them on the extremes, you could have potentially had a very interesting story that had them dueling, but instead you just kind of have Batman slowly being, I guess, manipulated by Lex Luthor a bit and just getting angrier. Superman mad at Batman. I mean, Superman literally warns Batman, like, if you go to your, the next time they turn your signal on and you ignore it, or else I'm gonna come get you. And then when Batman turns the signal on and is waiting for him, he's like, nah, I'm not gonna fight him anymore. It's like they just change their minds and they just do things randomly because they wanted to have Lex Luthor hold Superman's mother hostage. So Superman has to change his opinion. Well, now we need Batman and Superman to team up because there's this monster coming out. The Doomsday is coming out. So we need them to team up. So they're now going to team up. Just it's going to be a quick, but no development happens in this movie. None of the characters are fully developed. The closest is Batman, and he does have some development in that first little bit, especially the way, and there's more going on with dreams, and we kind of do have a build up of his character a bit. But even him, it feels flat because so many things, he changes so quickly. And you're like, well, what was the point of all the development we had here for it to go this direction? Why didn't we build towards this? And so consistently, this movie is just things happening to get us to a point. Batman sends Wonder Woman the Justice League files from Lex Luthor's computer. That why couldn't why do we need her looking at them? I don't know, but we needed her looking at them so we could see them, and so that happens. Lex Luthor needs to blow this up, so we move to this position and we have kind of this talking with a senator and all these things. It doesn't really develop the story very much, but it needed to happen to get to this explosion. And that's the problem with this movie, is everything is just there. It's aesthetically pleasing. It is a very well shot looking, in terms of looking movie. It's a very, very, very terribly edited movie. There are a few movies I've ever seen as poorly. There are times where like you're just like, you don't need to cut so quickly and things, and the scenes are jumbled together. It's a terribly edited movie in so many ways. I feel like there are film students that are going to watch this movie and just be like, I would have been failed if I turned this in. I would have absolutely been failed if I turned this editing in. So whether they were pushed on a deadline or they felt the movie was too long, had to cut it quickly, I don't know, but it's not good editing. But it's shot well. It is shot well. The fights are enjoyable, but they are meaningless. I don't care if Superman and Batman are going to fight because I know they're going to team up because I've seen the trailers, sadly. B, the development that we had these characters, it doesn't, if it had developed rightly, this fight could have been intense and had meaning behind it. But instead, it's just a quick little 7-minute fight, and then we're off to go fight Doomsday. It had no meaning. Wonder Woman being there has no purpose whatsoever because we do not get any development of her character at all. She's just there. She's just there. She steals some things. She talks to Batman a couple times. She sees some Justice League files, and then she fights with them. She has no development, so we don't care when she shows up. It should have been an actually really emotional moment because this character should have been revealed, and you're like, holy crap, this is Wonder Woman. She's there. Instead, it's a hollow and shallow moment that we'd seen in the trailers already, so why does it matter that it's in the movie? Doomsday is... The CG looks a little better than it did that first trailer, but still, he's just it just evolves into a monster movie, which isn't a big deal with Doomsday, but it didn't, the movie suddenly changes and you're like, oh, now it's a monster movie. This movie didn't know what it wanted to be, and it tried so many things. And in the end, that is its biggest flaw, is just a terrible story that is so pinned together. And I do believe there's something there. I do believe the ideas between Batman and Superman battling is there, and that is a coherent story. I believe you can bring the Justice League in this story in a coherent way. But sadly, Zack Snyder does not do that, and it is painful to watch for 2.5 hours when you're just like, what is this? As it jumps from scene to scene to scene with no importance behind any of it, and that is so disappointing. Now that I've ranted for 15 minutes on it, might as well rant a little bit more. I mean, seriously, I think something that bothers me is just how unintelligent it treats its fan base. And I mean this there's so many things and so many, comic book references in this movie, but instead of being like nicely, putting there for like, oh, you've read the comic books, good, congratulations, thank you, thank you for supporting us, here's this reference here, this reference here. It's like they give you a reference and then they point like, hey, see that was the Flash, that's the Flash, he's in the DC comics, hey, that was the Flash, or hey, look, that's Cyborg, hey. And then there's references like, hey, do you see that? That's in the comics. That's in the comics. You didn't know it because you probably don't care, but that's in the comics, and that's really cool. And it's so frustrating. I'm just like, just subtly give me this building up to this universe. Give me subtle hints. Give me little things. Don't spoon feed it to me like, hey, guess what? Did you know there are DC comics? And we're building to the Justice League? Because here, right here, and here, and here, and here, and here. And they just like, they slow everything down to point out where all the little moments are. And are there still theories? Are there still subtly hidden things? There are a few here and there. I mean, it's a possibility that there are some, multiverse, alternate, realities tied into here with weird dream sequences that, and questions to be asked. And those things are legitimate and interesting ideas that maybe are in it, maybe they aren't. But most of the time when there is something that is comic book related or something that isn't directly to like Batman and Superman, they have to like slow the film down and point it out to be like, guess what? Justice League, that's going to be important later. That's going to be important in another movie. Don't worry, it's coming, it's coming. And as a whole, I felt like they were like just insulting my intelligence and the fact that I had like, hey, have you picked up a Batman or a Superman comic? Because if you haven't, I'm going to point all these other things out. It's like, I've read comics, I've read these things, I know a lot of these little things. Let me figure them out. Let me piece them together. Let me look in the background and be like, oh, was that in the background? That's really cool. And that's kind of what Marvel's done with a lot of stuff. And look, Marvel is not perfect. They have made a lot of mistakes, but they've also been able to build through it. And that's one of the great things they've done with their world building. And I think DC was just like, we don't need to build our world. We're just going to throw it all into one movie. And maybe they will be able to learn from a lot of these mistakes. And I hope the universe. I'm very excited for Suicide Squad, even with the reshoot questions coming up. They've announced. I'm very intrigued with what they're going to do with the Wonder Woman movie, the Flash, Aquaman, a Batman standalone movie sounds exciting. So I'm not going to just say the DC universe is not something that's dead. I just want them to treat it with the respect it deserves and spend time and give us movies that are, even if they aren't great movies, at least are enjoyable movies. Because this movie did the worst it can be. It's A, boring, B, terrible, C, not fun. And so why would anyone want to watch more of these movies? Why would you want Zack Snyder directing any more of these movies? It's just, this movie just, it was just bad. It was just incredibly bad. So in the end of this incredibly long rant of how much I dislike this movie, it's just not good. And I can't recommend to go see it. And that hurts me because as someone who works in the theater, at the theater, it's something that, I say, hey, come see movies. That's part of my job. And it hurts to see a movie that was this bad. And I can't recommend it to anyone because it just is not good. There's still hope. The universe is not dead, but for a movie that's billed as Batman versus Superman, and we don't get much Batman v Superman, the fight is not much, and it's a lot of hype for kind of it's a cool fight, but it doesn't have any meaning. And Dawn of Justice, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice is a lot of nods and winks and saying, hey, how awesome we are. and not a lot of substance. And that's the biggest thing in this film. They just dropped the ball when it came to substance. So what do you guys think? Am I being too harsh on this film? I do think it's one of the worst superhero movies I've ever watched. Tell me I'm wrong. What do you want to see in the DC universe going forward? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, like this video, subscribe to the channel. And there'll be a lot more videos coming out, hopefully, as my schedule balances out. I plan to review all of the remaining few episodes of Star Wars Rebels. I have not forgotten. I have comics to catch up, so check out the channel. And I am Shawn Redman, aka the cheesily named Darth Shawn. And may the Force be with you. Always.